Welcome to From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. On today's show, we're going to talk about sports, education, entertainment, family, and faith, and how those things collectively or separate can impact our lives. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. Before I bring on our guest today, as always on the show, I want to give honor to God, who's the head of my life. And without God in my life, none of these things that I've done would be possible. So I want to do that first and foremost. This show is remote and live from Houston, Texas, home of the 2023 NCAA Division I Men's Final Four. And what a Final Four it's been, right? We've had a in the NCAA tournament itself since it started, field of 68. We had a 16 seed get beat by a 1 seed get beat by a 16 seed. We had a 2 seed get beat by a 15 seed, right? And Florida Atlantic University, a 9 seed, made it to the Final Four. And all I can say is everybody that I'm talking to down here in Houston is talking about how unexpected, this Final Four was. The Blue Bloods are not here. And, we don't see the Dukes and the Kentuckys, but we do have a blue blood here, UConn, right? If UConn wins the championship tomorrow night, they will have won their 5th NCAA tournament championship. And that, means a lot, and that makes them an elite team in this tournament, right? But the other two things that I can think about are two tenets that are making basketball, the parity in basketball at a high level are the NIL, name, image, and likeness, the collective, right? And also the transfer portal, right? And we've talked about that on the show many, many, many times before, right? And today we have such special guests on the show. We have someone that has been in NCAA tournaments in a Final Four. We have a guest that has played college basketball and now does something for youth. But our first guest on the show is Mr. Jerry Pollard. Mr. Pollard is a decades-long NCAA official. He's a multi-league assigner of officials, and he is a former law enforcement officer. Let's bring in Jerry Pollard. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cedric. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
How are you, big bro? How's everything going, man?
Oh, I'm pushing the retrain button here at home, getting home, and after being on the road for 5 months, and it's re-entry, so to speak, kind of trying to figure out what to do with myself.
Absolutely. And backstage on the show, Jerry, we were talking that for me, it's weird not seeing you, on television doing the biggest games of the season, right? And you've been an assigner of mine, and when I was a head men's basketball coach at Lakeland College, and the relationship that you and I have built over, I guess it'd be like 15 to 20 years, is just remarkable to me, because as we talk backstage, when we first start out, it's it's kind of butting heads, and it doesn't need to be. But as we've grown to know one another and respect one another, you've been a mentor, right? Because I've come to and saw your camps. I've come and seen the camps that you do for our junior college tournaments and unsigned senior events and things like that. Before we go to the next guest, Jerry, just tell me a little bit, how has, being an official for more than 3 decades, how has that kind of shaped who you are. And you were a law enforcement officer. You were on SWAT. You were a SWAT guy. You know, you made the jump. You retired and you made the jump. How is that?
Well, I first of all, I've been blessed. A tremendous run. I'm not sure when it's going to be over, so I'm kind of taking one day, one year at a time with this officiating thing. But Cedric, in all honesty, the training and stuff, and I've said this many, many, many times. If anyone's ever heard me talk, it's camp or whatever. The training as a law enforcement officer, the training as a SWAT officer that I went through has made me a much better official. I get out there in front of 16,300 people at Allen Fieldhouse and it's tied with 4 seconds to go. Um, those type of situations don't get me rattled. And I've been in a lot of life-threatening situations, going through doors with people that are armed on the other side, not knowing what to expect. And fortunate enough to come out
Yes, sir.
on the right side of things, and I really think that stuff has led me to be able to um, cope with it. And then taking that another step about the coordinator business and dealing with coaches as a coordinator has made me a much better referee, because it shows me what you're all going through on a daily basis as a coach, and it puts me in your shoes.
Yes, sir.
And my way of talking to you and basically talking a coach off of the ledge after a hard game and an officiating decision that he may have thought interrupted what he wanted the outcome to be, um, it's made me a lot better. And you know what? I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those two things.
Yes, sir. And I can attest to that because we had a very unique situation when I came back and coached a few games, and we had a mistake that was made by an official, and because of my relationship with that official, because of my relationship with you, we were able to work through that and work it out. And that official did something that just blew me away. He sent an apology to me and my team and allowed me to read that apology to that team. And that's class. That's a very classy act. And then the third official called me over when he came to the game. He said, "Hey, Dr. Brown, I want to tell you, you are a class act," because it went in the paper and things like that. And I just defended the fact that, hey, we're human, right? And grace needs to happen, and we'll work it out. And then those officials will always get better as time goes along. So I can attest to that, Jerry. Thank you for that, man.
Well, we don't want to be involved in the outcome, but we are.
Yes, sir.
And the last thing we want to do is be the reason that a young man plays his last game, or you coach your last game for that season.
Yes, sir.
That's the worst thing in the world. And I guarantee you, last night those three guys working at FAU game, they did not want to be involved in that last second shot in any way, shape, or form, because a whistle was going to determine or give a team a chance to win or lose.
Right. Yes, sir.
And those three guys, I worked with Bert and I worked with Kip in the UCLA Gonzaga game last week. And John Higgins is one of my best friends. All three of those guys were brothers.
Mhm.
And I was rooting for them. I didn't want nothing to happen. I wanted that thing to end clean, and it did. And kudos to them, man. They refereed their butts off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And our next guest is Mr. Henry Perez. He is the CEO and the founder of We Will Through Sports. He's a youth camp organizer, a real estate entrepreneur, and he is the father of my beautiful goddaughter. Welcome to the show, Henry.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting me and having me again, man. I feel like family for real.
Hey, you're a crowd favorite, man. I mean, they wanted to bring you back. So,
Nah, that's
your
awesome.
your comedic style brought you back, right? So,
All right,
welcome to the
that's it.
show. Welcome to the
Appreciate
show.
you, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. And so, Henry, you and I played college basketball together, Division III basketball, and we have also officiated together in certain things, right?
Hmm.
And now you have taken that to another level, right? With the foundation that you and your wife, have started, and it's blossoming, and you're doing a lot of things there, and in many of the boroughs, specifically in the Bronx and Manhattan. Um, Tell me, Henry, how did playing basketball being an official, and now you are teaching the game, the fundamentals of the game. You know, you're trying to teach them to be students of the game. How is that for you right now?
Great question. For me, it's just the passion. You know, I think the passion what really drives me, the blessings that I get to give back, but also seeing a lot of me and these lot of kids that I see day in and day out, man. I think that's an awesome thing to do. So just giving back, man, and just the passion and teaching kids the right way, how to play the game, how to think the game outside the game, and the endless possibilities that occur, you know, because of that round ball. And you would know, we would know. So it's those stories that keep pushing not only me, but you know, pushing them kids, man. And this is how come we keep seeing the awesome outcomes that we do see. So that's pretty dope within itself, man.
Well, I take my hat off to you all the time, Henry. We have many conversations many times per week, and the things that you're doing to affect change in the lives of the young people. You know, some at risk youth and some not at risk. You know, and you're across the board. You know, with all groups. You know, it's not just individuals that look like you and myself, but it's everybody. You know, it's an inclusive effort on your part, and I applaud you for that. Let's bring in Jerry Pollard also, so we can talk about some of these topics. So I sent you all the topics that we were going to talk about because you know, I don't like my guests to be surprised. But what surprises have you experienced with this year's NCAA tournament? And Jerry, I'm gonna start with you.
I think you mentioned it earlier. Said it. The parity in this year's tournament is amazing. You got a number 9 seed that got beat last night on the last second shot. San Diego State. All those teams blew up every freaking bracket that anybody filled out. So the teams are older because of the NIL and the portal. And I think when you get these older players out here moving around and the coaches can bring them together as a team, I think it's unbelievable. But there's one other thing that I want to mention, and I'm probably going to let the cat out of the bag here, but I probably shouldn't say that. I might get a phone call tomorrow, but it is what it is. But the NCAA changed the ball this year, and they went to a Wilson EVO NXT game ball. It's more brighter orange, but there's a level of an extra layer of grip on the ball. And when I first touched this ball in my first game of the tournament was Iowa State and Pitt. And Pitt went out to a 22-2 lead. Iowa State couldn't throw it in the ocean. And every player on that floor was complaining about the ball. And I was the referee. We had a little deflate gate going on before the tip because we let some air out of the ball.
Right.
And over those first 2 days, Thursday and Friday, which everybody loves, and I do too in the tournament when there's so many games on, I think they had 14 or 15 times where that ball got stuck between the rim and the backboard, which by rule was a jump ball. But we got a memo the next for the regionals. Actually, it was between the first Thursday, Friday rounds and then the second round on Saturday and Sunday. Do not take the air out of the ball. But those balls were hot, man. And they were bouncing all over the place, and the players were having trouble adjusting to them, which led to a lot of teams having trouble shooting the basketball.
Right. Well, and thank you for that, Jerry. And you hear that here first on From the AD's View, right? We get a professional look at what's going on behind the scenes, and we get that from an experienced individual like yourself, Jerry. Henry, stay with me. Jerry, stay with me. We're going to go to a break real quick, and we'll come back and we'll get your thoughts and your insights on that. You are watching From the AD's View. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Be sure to watch us every Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can get me on my IG, my Instagram at From the 80s View, or my website at cedricmbrown.org, and my email, which is cmbrownsportmanagement@yahoo.com. And you can do that at any given time. I will reach back out to you, and I welcome your thoughts and any ideas for upcoming show. Now let's get back to today's guest, Mr. Jerry Pollard and Mr. Henry Perez. Intercollegiate athletics has evolved over the past decade, and I know that there's some emphasis on rules changes. I know that there's some emphasis on different things that impacts the sport. Henry, what do you think is going to happen when emphasis and changes in the sport, like the ball that Jerry was talking about? How do you think that that's going to affect the outcome of contests, both in college football and college basketball?
I think for me, and just to collaborate with what he said, just to kind of breach over that, I think even just the contact is just getting a little weaker. Like kids are not really playing as hard. Growing up in the '90s, basketball was just a whole lot different. But I feel like these kids, I don't want them to get beat up, but every little call, I think is just I don't really see the contact there anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not experienced, but I can tell you one thing, that it's kind of altering the game at times. Kids are going up expecting sometimes to get hit, and you see this drama acting. It's like, hey, are you acting or you're playing? So
Right.
sometimes, you know what I mean? I don't know what is this. Oh no, it was the layup. 2K23. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of these kids are seeing a lot of TV, and it's kind of messing them up. And that's my opinion.
Absolutely. And Jerry, you've seen the game over the last 30 years, and I know that there's been emphasis on hand checking. There's been emphasis on, being in the cylinder of an offensive player as a defender. How have you seen those rules that have changed and the emphasis that you as officials are supposed to enforce? How have you seen that change the game?
I'm going to throw something at you all, and nobody ever thinks about this, but over the last 3 rule change cycles, which is the last 6 years, because there's a rule cycle change every 2 years, there's been over 80 to 100 rule changes. Now, if we would go into a company and we would change policies and procedures 100 times in 4 or 5 years, people would have trouble staying within the guidelines of what that particular company wants, correct?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now we put all these new rules in, and the rules committee does a great job. Don't get me wrong. They're probably one of the most tedious committees across the country in anything that we do. But when you change those 100 rule changes, how's that put it into the coach's lap? How should I coach this? How do I continue to coach this and stay within the rules? Because in reality, from my point of view, there's only about 10% of the coaches across the country that I work every year know the rules. And now, if you're going to change those type of rules, how are the players going to stay within what they know as rules? Like, you'll say, hey, you can't do that. What they changed this rule. It's just like every time you see me referee, when I put a ball in play on a sideline or a baseline, I back the defender up 3 feet because I don't want to referee that kid on top of the thrower end.
Mm-hmm.
And have all that nonsense that can go on. Technical foul, reaching over the line, player putting the ball across the line, being able to touch. I back that guy up because by rule we can do that. And 2 years ago they changed it. Okay. No player in the country knows that rule, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But those guys who I referee all the time, I don't even have to tell them anymore because they adjust. So it's hard to coach new rules. It's hard to play within that many rules. If you're a 4-year player and you've had 80 rule changes in your 4 years, that's hard to keep up with. And then you put that striped shirt on and you're trying to stay within that rule book and our case book of what we do, and you've got 80 to 100 new rule changes. It's hard.
Yes, sir.
And that's my opinion. I think we need to leave the game alone at times and kind of let it rest, let it catch up with itself, and I think it'll iron out.
Yeah, because Dr. James Naismith only had 13
Correct.
when he started. He only had 13 rules when he started, right?
Yeah, correct.
Henry, for you, sport management is a growing industry, right? You and I were in at Lehman College. That was a lot of what we did as far as our curriculum design and towards our degrees. How can what we teach young students during your breakfast, what you teach during your breakfast workouts, how can that benefit young people interested in sport management in that field?
No, that's a great question. So for us, we're always teaching, but it's always like an ecosystem, right? So we're always teaching that again, the off the field, but the responsibilities that we teach, even through a tournament, even through just the workouts, we teach the back end things for them to see it, because a lot of kids are not going to make it. That's the reality, right? But there's ways to still make some income, some cheddar cheese for them kids to learn. Hey, there's other things that we can do and still love the game. They can still love the game and do other things. So for us, we're always teaching on the back end of things for kids to really see a full picture of what the game is. It's not just the basketball on the court. There's so many other things and so many other moving pieces that we teach them. And that's the great thing about that. And then we also have just kids actually coming back and, volunteering, coaches, like all these things. So that ecosystem is definitely there. So that's a great thing for us.
Absolutely. And Jerry, at youth and high school levels, there seems to be a greater need for properly trained officials. How are you and your teams addressing this issue? And they'll bring up your business for the officiating here in a second so people can see it.
We could do 6 podcasts on this, said, and first of all, and
We'll bring you back. We'll bring you back.
I'll get into this later, but we need to talk about society before we leave here tonight and what their thoughts are and how they are handling their reaction to sports officials. But I have a specific camp I ran over 22 years that I really market it towards the new person, the former players. We really need to hit that group of guys, the alumni, 2 to 3 years after you get done playing. You play varsity college basketball for 4 years, you get yelled at by a coach that's pretty active, and last thing you want to do is put a striped shirt on and keep getting yelled at by referees. So right. Those guys have a year or two where they need to get away from the game for a few, but man, then they start going, okay, this YMCA league or whatever I'm playing on Sunday nights, it's not cutting it. And then what I try to tell these guys is when I walk through that tunnel, those lights are just as bright, the competitive spirit, the juices start flowing. And for me to compete at a high level to get my plays right and stay off of Sports Center, because that's my goal every night.
Right.
But that gets the juices flowing in these guys that come back from playing and they start refereeing again. But my camp, I really try to go after those young people, and even the 30 to 40-year-old guys that are wanting to try and go, hey, you know what? My kids are grown now. I want to get back into basketball. I want to do something. And coaching's not for me. I want to do something else. Officiating's where it's at. And we run this camp, and it's the first one, the Hoops Officiating Clinic 1 on the screen, April 14th to the 16th. It's coming up. We've got plenty of spots open if anyone's interested. They can go to my website at hoopsofficiating.com and or contact me, and we'll try and get you in there. And when you walk in there on Friday, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to look around the room and you're going to go, oh my God, do I belong here? And then on Friday night at first game, you're going to look at like a goose in a new world. You're going to be kind of intimidated, a little overwhelmed. And we do some things off some clinic sessions, trying to lead into what they're going to be doing all weekend as far as mechanics and on-floor mechanic sessions and stuff before they even go out there. So we really try to get them prepared. And I always tell them, if you go out here and you try to put your arms around everything that all of myself and my clinicians and staff are telling you, you're not going to be able to get through the door when you leave on Sunday, because you're going to get so much information that you're going to be overwhelmed. But I'll guarantee you this, and I guarantee it to everybody who walks in the door. when you leave on Sunday, you're going to be a better referee. And that's our goal. So
and I believe that because I've seen firsthand, Jerry, when we have our JUCO events and you are running your camp at the same time that the JUCO is running their camp. Jerry Mullins, the the godfather of those JUCO camps. Your guys are getting coached by you and your team, just like the teams are being coached on the floor. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen guys grow in your under your leadership. I've seen them grow, and I've seen officials get better and move on from JUCO to the GLVC to Division II, and then I think I've seen some of them that are now getting an opportunity to work some Division I games. So you're absolutely right, and that is kudos to you and your team, Jerry, for the things that you are doing for society. And I will get to that. I want to make sure that I get to this one because this is the most important. What has impressed you both about the women's NCAA tournament? And I'll start with you, Henry. What's impressed you about our women's tournament? Because it's been fantastic.
It really has. The Iowa star, man, she's balling. Anytime you have Sue Bird,
Caitlin Clark,
right? Anytime you have Sue Bird coming to visit you, you're doing something good, right? So when I saw her, I said, that's when I said, wait, let me not change the channel. Who is this? Who is this? So no,
right.
She's a baller. She's a baller. So and then not only she knocked out what was the
South Carolina.
Right.
South Carolina, yep.
She knocked them out, but the way the team is just playing on a whole nother level, man. So I would definitely, it was fun. It's been fun, man. And now having a little girl, man, I already got the hooping going on. So it was a great sight to see, man. It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Right. And you have people like Angel Reese, you have, Aaliyah Boston, you have Caitlin Clark, you have Coach Mulkey, who goes back home to Louisiana after she played in Louisiana, then she leaves, she goes to Baylor, and she won an NCAA tournament when she was an assistant coach.
Right.
And just to see Coach Mulkey with all her flair and all her swag and everything,
and gear.
and to see her do it again and do it in her home state is amazing. And ESPN, they're getting it right over there because ESPN, they got sponsors, they have donors to put up money, and the women's basketball tournament broke records for television views on ESPN and that Disney channel. So Disney did something right this time by investing in our NCAA women's basketball tournament. Jerry, I do want to go back to something that you said before. We see all too often, unfortunately, in the news, on YouTube and things like that, where officials, basketball umpires, football officials are just getting terrible, hard times from parents, coaches, and things like that. Is some of that the need for officials, is that attributed to some of the behaviors that is going on in society today?
Absolutely. When these AAU tournaments start up, and I'm speaking basketball, and we can basically relate this to all sports, as you said, but when these AAU tournaments start up for the spring and summer and the open periods and those kind of things, for those tournaments that don't have the EYBL security and the programs taking care of the fans, etc., they're out of control. You can turn on the YouTube any Monday morning and see where an official got assaulted or whatever. Now, we as officials, in a lot of times, we're our own worst enemy, and we throw fuel on the fire. But I think we can put that aside. We're human beings, and if society don't learn how to control themselves in some way, I'm starting to see it at the college level where we're starting to have a shortage of officials. And if we don't get it under control in 5 to 7 years, we're not going to be able to have youth sports the way we know it and the way we've seen it. And your goddaughter and his daughter, God bless her. I hope she's got a chance to play when she gets to be, that age where she could play.
And I want to add to that. And
Go ahead,
really
Henry.
quick, this is why we do the transformational coaching. We do a lot of mindset stuff off the court because what's going on as a society, it's like we're going plummeting down. So we're teaching and giving skills for these parents, for these kids to understand it's not only basketball, but the relationships that you guys are building with one another and a teammate and someone else that creates a better culture and just respect. So I think this is 4 more podcasts. If I get invited one more time, I'm gonna send an invoice. But however, this is a great conversation. Though this is great. Yeah.
I told you, hey, from the AD's viewers, I told you, Henry Perez does not disappoint. He does not disappoint. And before we leave, obviously, both of you know me, and my life is entrenched in faith, and we've had some conversations. Jerry, how has faith or spiritualness impacted your life and your family's life?
Well, let me gather myself a little bit because we're going to bring up my mother. And yeah, I get a little emotional when I talk about her, but
Take your time, man. Take your time.
Lost my dad when I was 7. She became a very strong woman after about 2 years of problems raising me and my 12-year-old brother. We were 2 knuckleheads, complete knuckleheads. She's 32 and trying to raise us with a brand new home that my dad got to spend one night in before he passed away with Hodgkin's disease in 1969. But our Catholic faith and what she literally made us do as kids. We went to Catholic grade school. It was shoot 800 yards from our house, and the church was there. And those first 5 years that I went to the Catholic school really formed me who I was, but I didn't realize it for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And it's just something that, as you all could see, it means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
Thought about it this morning when I seen your all's question, and it's Palm Sunday as far as Catholics go, and we were in church this morning, and
yes, sir.
I need to get my stuff together, guys. But when I talk about my mom, it's pretty strong stuff. And you know what? It starts with the faith and what she taught us as kids growing up. So thanks for
Jerry.
letting me share that a little
Hey,
bit.
and I appreciate that, Jerry. And before I get to Henry, Jerry, if anybody wants to get in contact with you, how can they do that? I think you talked about your website. Can you? We'll pop that up. Can you give them your website?
Yeah, the best thing to do is go to hoopsofficiating.com. There's a contact button you can push on there that will send an email straight to me. If they could put my email address up too, there you go. Y'all can also email me at gman564@aol.com. I might be an old slow referee, but I'm pretty quick on my cell phone, so I can get back to you all, whoever wants to. And we'll take anybody. Anybody who's interested in becoming an official. And you know what? I'm 61 years old, been doing Division I basketball for 30 years with 20 straight tournaments. And I'm going to get better in 2 weeks when I have that camp and all those people come in there. They're going to make me better. I'm going to learn something from somebody. And if we stop learning as official, it might be time to start thinking about doing something else. So yes, I welcome anybody, any questions, anything you want to talk about officiating. You all got my contact information. I appreciate the time tonight.
Yes, sir. And stay with us, Jerry. Even when we get off the show, we'll be back in the green room and we'll talk a little bit. And Henry, obviously I know you 25 years. How has your faith and spiritualness impacted your life?
Changed my life. It's changed my life. It's changed my life, man. I was always on the other side of the fence, man. Figured out, got married. And it just changed my life, man. Again, man, that's more invoices, more podcasts. But no, it's been amazing, man.
Always monetizing. Always.
Yeah. It's just honestly, man, words can't describe the impact it's had in my life and it's having in my life day in and day out, man. I'm leaning in more, and the more I think I know, the less I know. So it's definitely has been a powerful impact in my life, man.
Well, I can say with all assurance that Henry, you have touched my life, right? And we went through undergrad together and things like that. And then to see the man that you've become, and being around your wife and my God, baby, it's special, and I appreciate that. Henry, how can anybody get in contact with you? And they'll scroll them across the bottom of the screen. I believe your website and then your 2 emails.
Yeah, so the website wewillthroughsports.com. Again, we do a lot of different things. You can check it out. We've been in communities, but also on the go a lot. So we are definitely creative with what we do, but the impact that we're doing. And the email is wewillthroughsportsyt@gmail. All right. So if you want to just reach out, you can. If you guys want to do some coaching sessions, this is Coach P Solutions at Gmail, so you can definitely reach out as well. And again, if you want to just have conversations, I'll definitely return, and let's make it happen.
Okay. Hey, I'd like to thank today's guests, both of them, my big brother, Jerry Pollard, and my younger brother, Henry Perez, for being on the show today. Don't forget to join us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern for more open and honest discussion from the AD's view. Good night and God bless.